We'll call this meeting to order of the Hollister Planning Commission special meeting for September 14th, 2023. Commissioner Lenore, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ross,
Present.
Chair Henderson,
Present.
Commissioner Corona,
Present.
Commissioner Lenore, and Vice Chair Stephen Belong notified the commission and staff that he would be not present this evening.
He just turned my microphone on for me.
Okay, verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on Monday, September 11th, 2023 at 2:55 p.m.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any minutes to approve, but we'll be discussing another about the minutes from we approved last time later on in the meeting. Okay, so we will move on to public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to the secretary before speaking. When the secretary calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the City Planning Commission. If you are joining us by Zoom, please click on the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. If you are joining us by Zoom using a cell phone, please press *9. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the Planning Commission from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
We do have speakers, Mr. Chair, and also note for the record that we received tonight a hard copy, but we did receive via email a letter from the San Benito High School District for the Planning Commission's consideration. And tonight, the speaker card I have is from Jeffrey Small.
Good evening, Chairman Henderson, members of the Planning Commission. Jeffrey Small, I'm the Municipal Advisor to the San Benito High School District. It's wonderful to see everybody tonight. The San Benito High School District is concerned that the minutes from the August 10th meeting mischaracterized my testimony regarding the Best Road property. My testimony was regarding Best Road. I know through other environmental work done at Gavilan and Fairview Corners that there are some environmental sensitivities out there, and it is true that to build could be costly as a result. I did not say it would be very expensive to remove the toxins from the Best Road property prior to any building, nor did I say that there are environmental issues on the Best Road site. The district has submitted a written request to the Planning Commission to accurately reflect my actual statement in the meeting minutes and have included video transcripts of the August 10th and August 31 meeting to support our request. We thank you for correcting the minutes.
Thank you.
I have no other speakers, and I have no hands raised in the virtual audience.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to public hearings. Item 1, vesting tentative map 2022-1 and density bonus 2023-3. Do we have a staff report?
We do, Mr. Chair. It'll be Erica Fraser. Just give me one moment to start this PowerPoint.
Good evening. Tonight you'll be looking at tentative map 2022-1 and density bonus 2023-3 for a single family residential development. The project is located at Cienega Road and Promise Way. The project site is currently vacant. It is partially surrounded by single family residential dwellings, as you can see on this map, and then also surrounded by some vacant vacant land used for agricultural, low-density uses in the area as well. To give you a little bit of background, this project has been under review for quite some time. On July 26, 2022, the applicant did submit an application for review. And what happens when an applicant submits their application for review is that the planning division then routes it to everyone within the development review committee. We meet with the development review committee and we gather everyone's comments. So there could be design comments at this point in an initial review. There probably isn't because we're missing some information. But what we do is we wrap together what we have and then we send it, or we distribute it to the applicant as one complete package. And we did that on August 24th. As required by the Permit Streamlining Act, we are required to give them a list of everything they need to give us within that 30-day period for completeness. The applicant then resubmitted in September. We then sent them comments in October. The applicant then submitted on June 8th and it was deemed complete. And the way that the Permit Streamlining Act works and the way that the Subdivision Map Act works is that once a project is deemed complete, we then have to move the project forward. We had to make a CEQA determination within 30 days of completeness. That was done. And then once that determination is made, the Subdivision Map Act requires us to bring the project before the decision-making body, in this case, the Planning Commission, for a decision on the project. So that's how we kind of got where we are tonight. Within those incompleteness letters and all the letters that have been sent, there's been a number of comments that have gone back and forth, both on completeness, required applications that we need to see, as well as design comments regarding their proposal. There are three main project concerns that staff has. One is the preferred option, so their option A does not meet the requirements of chapter 17.34, which is our density bonus chapter. We have concerns related to circulation, safety, and other impacts related to having garbage pickup on Cienega Road. And the most important is that the fire marshal has determined that the development does not comply with the fire code. I will go over each one of these in detail. The way that the Housing Accountability Act works is that staff and a city is limited on ways in which you can deny a residential development. Back in the day, you could deny it because the design wasn't attractive enough or whatever reason you had, but now it's very specific. It has to be due to safety or it doesn't meet the code. With regards to the density bonus, in the last submittal, we had two options submitted. That was because the preferred option has always been option A, and that includes a childcare facility, and staff has had comments on that from the beginning. So in the last round, there are two options. So I'm going to talk about both of them just so we can fully discuss their project. As far as the density bonus goes, however, they're proposing to restrict one unit for very low income, which is 5% of the total number of units. And because of that, they qualify for a density bonus. So as part of that density bonus, they are requesting a waiver of development standards such as setbacks and lot coverage, which they're entitled to. They then get to have a density bonus of units. And what they're requesting is the maximum, so that's 4 units. And again, that's allowed by the density bonus chapter as well as state density bonus law, so they are entitled to that. So that increases their density on the site up to 22 units. And then they're eligible for the parking requirements under the density bonus. So with regards to option B meets all the requirements of the state density bonus law and our chapter 17.34, so there's no density bonus concerns with option B. It meets all the requirements. Option A, however, then changes thank you. So option B has 22 lots for residential, and what happens is lot 21 becomes a larger lot, and now this kind of remainder lot over here becomes another house. Option A then changes it so all 22 are located within this area, and then a child care facility is proposed on parcel B. or a future childcare facility, I should say. The concern that staff has with that is that both the density bonus law and chapter 17.34 are very specific on what needs to occur for a density bonus for a childcare facility. The bonus allowed is either related to the floor area or square footage of the childcare facility. So if you had a high rise, let's say, and 5,000 square feet is going to be a childcare facility, they get an extra 5,000 square feet as their density bonus if they wanted. Or they can have an additional incentive that contributes significantly to the economic feasibility of the construction of the facility. So the bonus that they're requesting has to be tied to the construction of that childcare facility. As part of this density bonus, the applicant is requesting a waiver of the annexation fees for all the units, which is currently $13,500 per unit. The fee doesn't get paid until building permits are issued, so that fee will likely go up, but it would be a fee that the city would then pay on their behalf to the county. As noted many times to the applicant, we are requiring a site and architectural review for the childcare facility, and that's how we can first make sure that the incentive that they're requesting is related to the construction of the facility. It's to also make sure that a facility could be constructed on the parcel. And also our code requires that if you are requesting a density bonus for a childcare facility, that you will apply for a site and architectural review and conditional use permit. It's in the code. And again, this is a blown up of the childcare facility. We don't have an application in for it. It's a 5,700 square foot lot. Can a childcare facility fit there? I don't know. I don't have the plan. I don't have plans in front of me. So that's another thing that we're checking. Could it fit? They're going to have parking, play area, and then a building. And so part of the reason with requiring that site and architecture review is we're going to make sure that it can be constructed, and we're going to make sure that it will be constructed, since they would be requesting an incentive related to that. As far as garbage service goes, this again has been a comment from the beginning. Recology informed the city that they could not provide front door service because their trucks cannot back up the distance of the roads. So Recology said that they would only serve them on Cienega Road. What that means is that every house has to take their can out to Cienega Road. Every dwelling unit is required to have 3 waste receptacles now. So you have trash, recycling, and organics. So at a minimum, there will be 66 cans on Cienega. Now, if there's a JADU and an ADU on the site, there will likely be more cans, because you are likely going to require the person in the ADU or JADU to have their own trash services. So if that were to occur, we would have a total of 198 cans on Cienega. Each house with only 3 cans would require a minimum of 11 feet on Cienega Road if they perfectly place their cans. Due to the layout of the roads, making sure that site distance is maintained so people entering and exiting the development can adequately see onto Cienega to make an exit, and then the corner, there's likely only 6 feet available per house on Cienega. The larger concern is that it requires perfect can placement even with 3 cans per house. It is unlikely that everyone is going to go out there and make sure that they are no more than 18 inches away from their neighbor's can, and it would require everyone to perfectly place it on Cienega. The larger concern is that the police department has told us that in order to do this, they would have to have a 24-hour parking ban on Cienega Road. The police department has informed staff that they're not going to enforce that, because what they don't want to have happen is someone leaves a car out and then they start getting calls, I can't put my can out, someone left their car out, come move it. Like The flip side of that is I take my cans out and I leave them out there for a couple days because I don't want to pull them in, or I went on vacation or whatever it is, and they don't want to be out there enforcing cans having to go back into the house. So they have indicated that they do not want to enforce that. What that means is that if there are cars out there, now we have even less room on Cienega. Where's the cans gonna go? They're gonna go in front of somebody else's house. They're gonna go in front of a car blocking a car. And then with that situation, we start narrowing Cienega Road and creating some circulation impacts in there. Or people just put them right in the sight distance of the entering and exiting. So now I'm trying to make a left onto Cienega and I can't see where I'm going. Or I'm trying to make a right and there's a car coming and I can't see it because there's too much going on. So in this case for the garbage, we have serious concerns about the circulation, but also a larger concern is that there's likely just not enough space on Cienega to support all these cans. So again, this map is just so you can see how the road gets narrowed. We have to have adequate sight distance coming out of each of these roads. And then again, at the corner, it's gonna have to be scaled further back. So since the beginning, this has been a major concern for staff because of the likelihood that people are not gonna place it perfectly. We're gonna impede circulation in the area. And then not necessarily a safety concern, but expressed from the beginning is that if you are in one of these lower lots, let's say 4, 9, 5, or 10, and you bought the house when you were younger and now you're older or you have mobility issues, you have to take a can all the way to Cienega and you have to find space for it. And it's 3 cans. You're going out 3 times, right? And so that is a concern that we have just as allowing people to age in place or people with mobility issues. What happens 20, 30 years down the road if the layout is the way it is with the cans on Cienega? The biggest concern that staff has is in regards to life safety. The fire marshal determined that the project does not comply with the fire code. The fire trucks cannot travel down those roads. So the fire truck cannot travel down this road and then back all the way up. So the fire truck will have to park on Cienega. The fire code requires fire apparatus roads to be located within 150 feet of all sides of the structure. So what that means is the fire truck will park on Cienega, and then there are a number of houses where the 150 feet rule is not met. So for example, if the fire truck parks on Cienega, these houses, all sides of the structure would be further than 150 feet away. Because there will be cars, potentially trash cans, potentially both on Cienega, it's likely that we'll also have an issue with these houses as well because the fire truck will have to be parked further away. I am not the expert on fire code. So Charlie Bedoya, our fire marshal, is here tonight and he will go over the fire code from the fire marshal perspective. Yeah.
I'm gonna switch, Chief Bedoya has a presentation as well.
Thank you, Commission and Mr. Chair, for having me. My name is Charlie Bedoya, and I am the Fire Marshal with Hollister Fire Department. Thank you for here tonight. And it's not just about fire hose, it's about actually fire apparatus access. I have a quick little presentation. What do I press?
The right arrow.
Right arrow?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So this is straight out of the fire code, section 104, duties and powers of the fire code official. 104.1 general, the fire code official is hereby authorized to enforce the provisions of this code. The fire code official shall have the authority to render interpretations of this code and to adopt policies, procedures, rules, and regulations in order to clarify the application of its provisions. Such interpretations, policies, procedures, rules, and regulations shall be in compliance with the intent and purpose of this code. Such policies, procedures, rules, and regulations shall not have the effect of waiving requirements specifically provided for in this code. So section 503 on fire apparatus access roads. 503.1.2, additional access. The fire code official is authorized to require more than one fire apparatus access road based on the potential for impairment of a single road by vehicle congestion, condition of terrain, climatic conditions, or other factors that could limit access. 503.2.2, the authority. The fire code official shall have the authority to require or permit modifications to the required access widths where they are inadequate for fire or rescue operations, or where necessary to meet the public safety objectives of the jurisdiction. And then dead ends. This is what it's all about. 503.2.5 dead ends. Dead end fire apparatus access roads in excess of 150 feet in length shall be provided with an approved area for turning around fire apparatus. So those are some examples of what we can have of the proper turnarounds. You see the cul-de-sac, the Y, a hammerhead. The one on the right, the minimum clearance, that doesn't apply to this because that's for a long driveway where you kind of have a turnout on through there. But you can also have an alley dockway also if we wanted to. Section D 103, minimum specifications. Access road width with the hydrant. So this is just good information to have out there. Where a fire hydrant is located on a fire apparatus road, the minimum road width shall be 26 feet. So a fire access road is normally 20 feet, but anytime you put a fire hydrant on the road, you have to expand it out 26 feet wider. So it took me a few years to catch that, but I finally got it and understood it after being here for a little bit. Dead end fire apparatus roads in excess of 150 feet shall be provided with width and turnaround provisions in accordance with table 103.4. So if you look, if you have 0 to 150, you have to be, if you're less than 150, it has to be 20 feet wide. That's excluding a fire hydrant. So are there any turnarounds required? Absolutely not. 151 to 500, 20 feet wide. 120 foot, you could have a hammerhead, the Y, and any of those that you have right there to be able to give us the proper turnaround for the fire apparatus. And then you get into the 501 to 750, it gets into 26 feet, and then over 750, we have to figure out something else. Probably a second axis or a third axis. And you gotta understand, on those fire apparatus roads, you have to put up some signs. Either paint the curbs red that says fire lane no access, because 20 feet, and the reason is because roads 20 to 26 feet, you can't have parking on both sides of the roadway. And if you have roads 26 feet to 32 feet, you could only have parking on one side of the roadway. So these developments usually can't have parking on any parts of the roadway, so that would impair fire apparatus and even the garbage trucks too. I'm more concerned about the fire apparatus. But like I said, wider than 32 feet, then parking is allowed on both sides. So with that, I did some investigations on some developments that we've had in town. Heartland, if you look, is one of the developments over across from the Presbyterian Church on Cienega Road. So I was told Heartland doesn't meet it. Heartland could get away with it. So I went down to Heartland, and if you look at Heartland where the T is in the middle, you see how it tees off? I went to one of the driveways that went down there. The streets are 20 feet wide, but they're only 144 feet in length. So does that require a turnaround? No, it doesn't. It meets the code. And I showed the measurement right on that part right there. Also in Heartland, you see the hammerhead or the T all the way over there. I measured from the middle of the T to the end of it. It's 115 feet one way and 115 feet the other way. But if you look, it's red on both sides of the curb too, because it doesn't meet over that 32 feet or 26 feet in width. So that whole T is red, fire lane, no access. So that gives us a proper turnaround to be able to pull in, back up, and turn around where we need to go. KB Homes, west of Fairview. That's a development that's getting built right now. If you look down at the middle picture, they have these mini developments right there with like 3 or 4 homes that go down there. The farthest it goes back is from the street, 140 feet back to the length to a mini hammerhead back there. So that doesn't require a turnaround in there. But in that back little hammerhead that they have, it goes back 40 feet for a total of 80 feet in both directions. So 40 feet, yeah, we could get a fire engine back there and back it up and turn around. Their widths without a fire hydrant are 26 feet wide. And that was, so it gives us a little more playroom in there to move around. Allendale, here's a good one, north of Park Hill. So if you look over on Allendale, right under Shearwater Street, you see that little U right underneath there? This is a perfect example. It's Egret Lane and Raven Street. So I started in the beginning of the street in that left-hand picture, and I walked 150 feet. So right on that second picture, that's 150 feet where I walked to. So I continued out a little farther to the end of it, and it was 203 feet to the end. So yes, our hose can meet it, but it doesn't meet the turnaround standards. It's past 150 feet. So we have to have a turnaround. So what they have is it drives around in that big U through the other side of the development. And if you look right here on this next one, here's the second part of the street where the U's out. And from the beginning of the street to the back of that U, it's 196 feet. And you see where it kind of U's out. But in addition to that, the proper turnaround and the U that continuously goes through there, they have a 12-foot fire supplemental access fire road behind the homes also in addition. So they went above and beyond and added some extra access for us if needed. So all this is per the adopted 2022 Fire Code of Regulations, Title 24, Part 9. Any questions?
I was curious about the 150-foot rule. I guess I'm trying to understand what's the principle of that. Is it that if a fire truck has to back more than 150 feet, there's just more risk of something, an
Killing
accident? Okay.
Killing people, firefighters, people get run over.
Mm-hmm.
They
Okay.
have backup cameras, but it's still, if we need to move out of there in a haste because we're on duty 24/7 and Hollister, we're on duty even when we're out, we might have to clear a call. So that's good to delay care also. If we're having to back out because we have to have people out, both sides, backing up slowly and guiding them all the way out. Where if we have the turnaround, we could kind of go up forward, turn around, or the follow through and drive right out without having to put people's lives endangered.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the fire marshal?
Well, you do run the risk of having fire really close to your fire truck when you go in there.
That also.
I mean, if you had multiple structures, that could get tricky.
And you got to understand, we want to be able to pull up as close as we can to
Yeah.
the fire. We do care about the fire engine, but we do care about the exposures and life safety, about
Well, yeah,
the fire
the
extending to
firemen.
somebody
Yeah,
else's. So we want to put ourselves in between
Okay.
the fire and the other exposures also.
Okay.
So it's important that we're able to get in. And if something does happen, we do need to be able to make a quick getaway to escape. Gas lines
Right.
do blow.
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's about the turnaround. It's not about the fire, the hose reach, because we could reach it with a hose. It's about turnaround, and it's all about life safety.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
So, following the completeness, staff is required for all projects to make a determination on whether or not further environmental review is required under the California Environmental Quality Act. In this case, due to the concerns on Cienega and the fact that the fire marshal has not approved the project and has indicated that it does not meet the fire code, staff identified the potential for significant impacts related to the development. Because of that, in order to fully study it, a negative declaration or environmental impact would be required. Those are very costly to prepare. So under the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15270, for projects which are disapproved, they are exempt from CEQA. So in this case where staff is recommending denial at this point, no further environmental review would be required. But if it were to move forward, obviously as is, some level of CEQA review would be required. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, kind of in conclusion, the project is inconsistent with the general plan. The proposed layout does not allow the city to provide adequate emergency responses, including emergency fire responses as determined by the fire marshal. The plan for garbage collection on Cienega Road has the potential to result in unsafe circulation on the street. The plan for garbage would require the city to enforce a 24-hour parking restriction to even allow the cans to be located out there with some sort of, I guess, in a line, 18 inches apart. However, the police department has said they're not going to enforce that, so cars will likely be located in that area. The project will increase risks to life and property. And it's important to note that although Charlie went over some projects and kind of explained that this is what they've done, there are likely projects out in the city that don't meet today's fire code. And the reason for that is that every year something happens and the building code and the fire code adjusts. And the reason that the building and the fire code adjusts is to make sure that we've learned our lesson. So for example, the Paradise Fire resulted in changes to the fire code. Building codes change as we learn our lesson. For example, windows on a second floor and above used to be able to extend all the way to the floor, and that resulted in loss of life. And so the building code doesn't require it anymore. So codes are ever changing. The zoning ordinance is ever changing too. Projects that were approved even 15 years ago are likely not going to be approved today if they came before us because of the way that things change. Staff has prepared a resolution. The city attorney has looked at it, and all the findings are in there for denial of this project. We are recommending that you do adopt a resolution denying the tentative map and the density bonus. You could also choose to continue the hearing and provide direction to staff if you chose to do so. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have for planning comments. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff regarding the presentation, withholding any comments until after the public hearing? Just any questions?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
If you could, can you bring up the slide that shows which lots were the ones affected?
For sure, it's 4, 5, 9, 10, 14, potentially 3, 8, 13. It just depends on where the fire truck is going to end up being located, where you get further and further away from being able to get to that. Again, with this development, you can see it's a little harder to see on this map, but there is no parking in this internal roadway. They each have a 2-car garage. We'll be parking in the 2-car garage. And then there's some parking at the end of the street. But most of the parking will be on Cienega Road, especially if there's an ADU. We're going to have a number of cars, so Cienega Road will have a number of cars. Where a fire truck parks is where it's, I guess, going to fit.
Thank you.
Christine. go
I
ahead.
just wanted to add on to, with the options for tonight, that staff's recommending option 1, the adopting a resolution for denial. If the commission would decide to continue this item, the state law, well, it's actually our subdivision ordinance requires it would be an agreement between the commission and the applicant to basically waive the 50-day requirement for the commission to take action and have a mutual agreement. But that's an agreement between the commission and the applicant if you would choose to continue it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lenore, you had a comment?
Yeah, now I forgot what it was.
I mean, a question, not
I
a
have
comment.
question. It'll just keep going and all. Shoot. Without seeing any design, I can't determine if there's driveways or not.
So it's single family residential.
Yeah.
So
Two-car
we don't-
garage.
Two-car garage.
Is there parking out in front of the driveway? And then, how do I know if the driveway's front or back? I mean, I have no way of knowing, without more information, as you stated.
It's just a tentative map. We don't require
Correct.
site and architectural review.
Well, I don't know the lot coverages. I don't know anything.
It is in your,
Yes, it's a
The
part
lot
of the
coverage, was
density
it-
bonus.
it's a part of the density bonus, so.
Yes, but it didn't specifically say what the lot coverage was gonna be. But I'm getting the feeling it's like 60%.
It's 60%.
It said that, right? It said that?
Yeah.
That's with the ADU or without the ADU?
Well, the ADU can be part of the house, right? The JADU can be in part of the house.
Okay.
It's,
But the ADU,
unfortunately, in this case,
we can't require parking for the ADU, but I'm
No.
concerned with lot coverage. And I know we
So-
have the right to say something about lot coverage.
not under density bonus.
Okay, that's why I don't like it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, the city attorney does have something that she needs to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I sent the commission an email earlier today, and I wasn't sure if you all received it, but it was in response to the applicant's email to you earlier this week. And in that email, there was kind of an implication that if you chose not to approve the project, that you as individual commissioners could be liable for attorney's fees or costs should the project go to litigation. And I just wanted to make it clear to you that it would be the city that would incur those costs, not you personally. In addition, Erica did mention this, but the city attorney's office does review all project recommendations, resolutions, staff reports, not just this one, but at all of our meetings. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Okay, no further questions. We will open the public hearing at 6:38. Any speakers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first speaker, we did receive some written comments. This evening, the planning division was forwarded the email, which I believe the commissioners received earlier. That has not been printed because it is several hundred pages long of attachments, but it will be noted in our record. And then tonight at the meeting, we did receive 3 written comments from the applicant. Those begin, a hard copy has been provided to each of you. Those begin, Dear Planning Commissioners, dated September 14th, for code requirements and intent, and fire hose distances. So those 3 were received from the applicant. And then we also received a written comment or possibly a PowerPoint that will accompany a speaker that is also here tonight. And that speaker is Tom Connors. And that written or hard copy presentation, the title cover has an image and it says Birdhouse Preschool and Daycare. So we did receive those written comments. And then the first speaker tonight will be A. Siwak.
Good evening, Commissioners. I seem to come to all of these meetings. Staff has had 35, 40 minutes to present their side of things. All of it is untrue, and I get to have 3 minutes to respond. I'm happy to respond to each of the items if you want to open it up for public comment later. I provided you what the fire code is. I provided you what recology allows, that we can go down the driveways, which they initially did not want to do until I went out a week and a half ago and videoed what they do on the Saddlebrook development. And their own guideline says they can travel down a alleyway 150 feet. And that magical number coincides with the fire code, and it's to do with backing up. That same 150 feet is required in the backup distance for a hammerhead or a U-turn or Y-turn, whatever you want. All lots 5 and 10 have to do is wheel their carts 16 feet towards Cienega Road, and all of those lots, all 10 lots, will then be within that magical 150-foot backup area. In terms of the fire code, I gave you this morning, I happened to Google, and there it was. The beginning number is the length of the fire hose to the furthest corners of the building. I've even not accounted for setbacks. I've calculated that you can go to the furthest corner of Lot 5 and the furthest corner of Lot 10, and you will be at 150 feet from those two corners of those two lots, which are the deepest lots. You're going to have left, I think, 141 feet from that point of the fire hose to Cienega Road. So your fire access road suddenly disappears and is 141 feet below that magical 150 feet. When I went out and toured around with Mr. Bedolla, Fire Marshal Bedolla, I even said, okay, you guys on previous projects have made us put in EVAs. I'll give you an EVA at the end of that alley that has the lots 5 and 10. Oh, no, we don't want that. That's going to be a danger to people and robberies and all that. Fine. So the KB cluster homes were approved last year at this meeting. After 6 months of incomplete letters, we've had 20 months of incomplete letters. I've answered every issue that's been raised by staff in my 8 pages that I emailed you. I'm happy to open to ask me questions during the public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tom Connors.
Good evening. I'm Tom Connors, and I'm here with my daughter, Caitlin Wentz, and my son-in-law, Kyle. We live at 477 South Street in Hollister. It's in an historic Hawkins-built home that many in the community refer to as the Birdcage House. You may be familiar with it. We're the owners and operators of Birdhouse, a licensed in-home preschool and daycare facility. Our mission there is to prepare our students to enter kindergarten in either public, charter, or private schools, and we're very successful at doing that. Our motto there, given the bird theme of everything, is where our young birds learn to soar. We've been at maximum capacity for an in-home daycare, which is, for a large one, which is 14 students since inception, which is over 3 years ago. So why am I here? Why are we here? 3 simple points. We're here to highlight the critical need for more quality licensed childcare in Hollister. It's a very significant need. And my desire is that every accommodation be made to make the proposed childcare facility on this site a reality. To show our support, we're here also to show our support for Mr. Sywak's initiative to incorporate that child facility into his development plans. And we state our commitment to working with Mr. Sywak, given project approval, to deliver quality licensed child care to the families that so desperately need it. So here to finish it, if it's all right, I'll have Caitlin come up and speak. Is that all right?
Yes, she will also have 3 minutes, but if you'd like to yield your time, we can. The next speaker is Caitlin Wentz.
Hello everyone, I'm Caitlin Wentz and I live at 477 South Street. I'm the owner and operator of Birdhouse Preschool and Daycare. As a large in-home daycare, we are limited to only 14 students as stated. We receive multiple calls each week from families seeking childcare. Since we're at capacity, the only solution that we can offer these families is to join our wait list. Our wait list stands at over 85 Hollister families seeking childcare. To fulfill our wait list only would require opening more than 6 childcare facilities of our size. According to our preliminary web search, there are approximately 18 care providers in Hollister. Excluding Birdhouse, there are only 6 actual private licensed preschools. All of these schools are at maximum capacity and on a waitlist status. The remainder of these facilities are privately owned, relatively small, daycare-only operations. This shows the disparity between the community's needs and the available resources to meet those needs. To summarize, there is a critical need for increased childcare services in our area. Considering the increase in housing development, the need will increase exponentially. Mr. Siwak's project for a preschool is ideally located to handle the needs of existing families, but in addition, to serve the new developments as well. As a preschool in this community, we are in support of Mr. Siwak's initiative because it meets the needs of our neighbors and keeps pace with the growth of our community. This initiative supports the future of Hollister, and we ask for your support as well. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm willing to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ingrid Siwak.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Ingrid Siwak. I'm a licensed contractor. Before the sewer moratorium in 2002, I've built about 150 homes here in Hollister. I've owned this particular parcel for 25 years. I've paid the property taxes on it and mowed the weeds several times a year for all those years. My property is an odd-shaped piece with the lower 5,000 square feet cut off by Promise Way. When Benchmark completed Saddlebrook next door to me, I thought we could use their layout for our project. We came across the density bonus law, and it hit me that our orphaned little parcel would be a perfect site for a child care center. Plus, there's an additional half acre of abandoned city-county land that might somehow be utilized as well. As you know, there is a tremendous need for child care in our city and county. I thought the city would welcome me, including one in our project. But no, they have obstructed in every possible way for the last 20 months. So instead of getting a goal to eventually approve my parcel, they have invented fake issues, claiming that my project has life safety issues. All of this is untrue. My project is no different from Saddlebrook and the KB cluster homes that you approved last year. Why did those projects have no life safety issues and suddenly mine does? When did those requirements change? Thank you for listening, and please approve my project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no more speaker cards. Give me one moment to see if there are any raised hands. I have no raised hands, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I feel like I should disclose that I'm a neighbor to the Wenses, and I had no idea they were going to speak, and they probably had no idea I'm on the Planning Commission, so I just thought I would mention that. Okay, so we will now move on to, okay, so we'll close the public hearing at 6:50. Any comment? What is the thoughts from the commission?
I'll just go ahead and lead it off if you don't mind.
Sure.
I really don't prefer the density bonus on this lot. It's too little, and the city's not really benefiting from the density bonus. And there's too many unknowns with the daycare. And I agree with you, we need daycare. But we also need it feasible. It needs to be built. If you're going to use the density bonus off of a childcare, then I expect the plans to be submitted and it to be reviewed and a building permit to be issued at the same time you're building those houses, because that's how you're getting the smaller lots, which I got to tell you, I can see what this is. It's a giant monstrous house on a little lot, and then they're going to do ADU maybe. I don't know. I've always had a concern with a lot coverage exceeding 40%, which is the normal in the R1 or LDR, but 60%, that's really going beyond there, and that's a big issue for me. And of course, when I hear the fire marshal talking, I have to pay attention. This is a professional telling you that this is in violation of the fire code. How do I ignore that? I cannot ignore that. The best I can do this evening, and then I'm concerned with the parking. The monster house with 4, 5, 6 bedrooms, because that's what I'm getting the feeling of, it has more than 2 cars. So you got 3 or 4 kids, they have cars. So where's everybody parking for the giant house on the little lot? Just too much on 2-point-something acres. But again, I would prefer the design that it accommodates for the childcare. I think that's an awesome idea. Again, though, it has to have parking and improvements and any other improvements that are on-site requirements, any utility easements, landscape easements, and then again, you're cutting it way down, and so that's going to be a very small daycare maybe. So there's one thing. Of course, I'm assuming there's no access on to San Benito, which is a good idea. But I really got to pay attention to what staff is saying, but I wouldn't be opposed to seeing a redesign. Again, I prefer the 18 lots with no density bonus, and then you have a remainder lot, and it won't stay remainder because nobody leaves anything empty these days. So that I'm not too concerned with. They'll just build something else there. But I don't think it follows the general plan. I don't think it follows the true intent of the density bonus program. There's a lot of give here. There's a lot of taking, and I don't see enough giving to the city. So that's where I'll stop right there, and I'll stop right there for now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Corona, do you have any comments at this time?
I would just like to point out that the per code fire apparatus was 0 to 150 with no turnaround, and per the applicant's own email, giving if they were to ask them to back in 150, there's an additional 141 that comes to 291 feet, and I think that's a huge issue. That even per fire marshal's own words, there's too much danger if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's dark, lights, fire, smoke, people running everywhere. It's just too dangerous, in my opinion.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
I'm agreeing with these. I also really appreciate this report. I feel like it's really thorough, and it points out a lot of realities that we exist with. Definitely life safety is extremely important. I do like that you also pointed out clearing calls. I'm not sure if many people know what that is, but there is a certain time limit where you have to respond to a call, and so being able to get out quickly is really important. Also, the reality of the waste management and how, if you have a home, you would like to be able, a single family home, you'd like to be able to put your cans right in front. Paying attention to the aging and mobility issues that might arise for people who even just want to purchase the home. So I appreciate all that you've put into this.
Okay, thank you. I had a question for staff, maybe. You might be able to answer this. So I'm curious, I didn't realize there was such a shortage of daycare in the town. Are daycares limited to people doing it from their home, or could somebody rent an office space and do it there?
So daycare is always in short supply. It just is. The problem with this situation is that our code specifically requires site and architectural review so we can check and make sure that it's going to be built. With the density bonus, all the density goes onto the larger, goes away from that small parcel and onto the other parcel. So a house can't ever be built on that remainder parcel. So it couldn't be like someone decides they want to build a house and have a home daycare. They're not allowed to have a home. The density's all gone. It's going to have to be just a child care facility. We are very supportive of child care facilities, but I have to follow our code, and our code says you will have the permit application as part of the density bonus. There is child care facilities are allowed to be located throughout the city with a conditional use permit. The state also requires the city to allow for family daycares. It used to be before where cities would limit the number of children. The state has removed that limit where we used to call them small and large. Now you can go up to 12.
In the
14 depending on
In
the
the
age
house,
of the
okay.
children. Within a single family residential house, you can have up to 14 children by right. You just have to get your state license.
And if I may also, Erica, taking the density bonus out of it, a commercial childcare facility is a permitted use in the R1. It's permitted across the residential. It does require a conditional use permit, and it's new commercial construction, so it requires site and architectural review. So that's not something that's being required because it's a density bonus. That's being required because it is a new construction commercial, and in the residential R1 zoning district, it requires a conditional use permit per our code. Because it is a density bonus, that conditional use permit might have some additional regulations to ensure it's in compliance with density bonus law for childcare facilities. But this entire site could have been proposed as a commercial daycare center as well. That's also a use allowed in this zoning district.
So if they don't utilize the parcel B for a daycare, and they were to make the other lots larger, then they could utilize that other site for dwelling, for residential, correct? Because it's all about the bonus and.
So in the option B, the child care facility becomes a very large, a 5,000 square foot.
Right.
Or 5,700 square foot lot for a residential dwelling. And then lot 21 took over where lot 21 and 22 are on the preferred option. It's again, a larger parcel. And then all of the area is taken. With the preferred option, which is the child care facility, that's because the applicant is, with the child care facility, you get an extra incentive.
I understand.
Yeah.
But if the child care facility is not there, is there a way to design a subdivision that would include that parcel B?
Under option,
What a new option.
oh,
Yes.
yes.
Because you want ideas, right? It just seems to me that it doesn't have to sit fallow if you would just increase the lots to accommodate 22 lots spread across those parcel A and B. Then it's a building site.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if they don't want to give plans and sign architectural, and the only other option I see is to redesign the residential to include parcel B. Or leave it, what else do you do with it? So I don't know, conditional use permit for a daycare building? They can go that route, right?
Right, they could
It's
submit.
its own legal parcel B?
So parcel B can be a child care facility.
Yeah.
We have staff is not saying we never want this to be a
Oh, no,
child care
yeah,
facility.
I know
But I
that.
need the plans.
Right.
Our
So we
zoning
just
ordinance
don't know.
requires you to submit. It's just an unknown at this point. Does it fit? And then within the density bonus law, both the chapter and the state law, there's regulations on how that child care facility is run because they have to have affordable, I guess, rate related to the affordability of the units, and it has to be in place for the year that the unit is required to be affordable. And I don't have any of that information because I don't have
Right.
an application.
Okay. A lot of questions. Yeah. I'm not shy of development. Everybody knows that. But it's got to work for me. It's not for me, excuse me. It's got to work for the city and the applicant. This has got too much unknowns. And so I'm a little skeptical at this point.
Yeah, so I did have a question about the concept of offering a density bonus for a child care center. So was the intention that a development would develop lots and a child care center, and then the marketing would be, hey, if you live here, was it designed to attract young families per se, so that they'll have a child care center right there, or is that not really the concept?
So the density bonus law is both very generous and very specific. The state acknowledges that in addition to us needing affordable housing, we need childcare. And so within the density bonus, obviously the bare minimum is you're dedicating a percentage of the units and you get certain incentives related to that percentage, right? So in his case, for this example, with the 5%, you get the one incentive, and he's electing to do the waiver of the development standards. With the child care facility, you have two options. One is you can request an additional incentive, and that incentive is supposed to be related to the construction of the child care facility. Or you could say, the square footage of this child care facility that I'm building, I want you to add it into my overall density bonus, so I get an extra amount above that limit that is within the code. And I understand it's like very confusing because the density bonus law is a lot, but the intent is, if you want to, a developer is giving us a childcare facility, and then within the law, he's also following these requirements for the affordability within it. And then because of that, then the city is giving you something to help you build that, right? Because it's expensive to build, and childcare facilities are expensive to run. So really the incentive is supposed to cover that facility, the construction of it.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, my just another comment is that I am concerned about the fire code, and it seems this project is not complying, and so I believe that's just on that alone, I think we could justify denying this project. So that'll conclude my comments. Any further comments from the commission?
Can we, it's on. Hey, I'm not turning it off. We have the option of adopting the resolution and denying without prejudice, or this is just findings for denial? So where does can you reapply again come into it?
Sure what you mean by without prejudice.
That he can apply again.
Oh, right. I mean, for a different project.
Yeah, with a different design, so there's
Right.
nothing that says he can't do that.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have to
All
add
right,
that
so I
caveat.
wouldn't have to add that.
No.
All right, just making sure. I want to leave options for the applicant. I hate to slam the door, but for now, I don't have any other choice.
Excuse me, could you open it to public comment and I can answer some of the questions that Ms. Frazier has raised?
I think we've had enough public
Yeah.
comments. What's the pleasure of the commission?
Resolution number?
The next resolution number, Commissioner Lenore, will be 2023-29.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2023-29 of the City of Hollister Planning Commission denying the vesting tentative map 2022-1 and the density bonus 2023-3 for a residential subdivision located at Cienega Road with the findings as stated in the resolution.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 4-0. And what do we say about the missing Do we just say 4-0 or do we say 4-0 and,
Absent.
oh, no, okay.
Right.
Motion
One-
carries 4-0. Thank you.
One absent.
Yeah.
And this action is appealable to the city council within 15 days, and you can contact the planning division for, appeal forms, but can be appealed over to the city clerk, and it is associated with a fee.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2. Oh, actually, no, there's no item 2. Any new business?
None?
Okay, no new business. Old business?
No old
None.
business.
Okay, sorry, I see that you put none there
I
this
did.
time. Thank you for doing that. Okay, we'll move on to study session items. Site and architectural, item number 1, site and architectural review 2022-6.
Thank you,
Staff
Chair.
report.
Thank you, Chairperson Henderson. We'll begin with the staff report by Magda Gonzalez, and then we have members of the Starbucks team here to also discuss, and this is kind of a discussion about some design issues that have come up on the project for your feedback. Magda, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. I am presenting Starbucks Site and Architectural Review 2022-6. Next slide, please. The proposed project is located on the northeast corner of the intersection of West Side Boulevard and 4th Street, highlighted by that blue rectangle. Next slide, please. The applicant has provided elevations which are typical of a Starbucks. Staff does not have any issues or concerns with the current design that they have with the elevations. Next slide, please. These are just additional elevations from the south side of the building and the west side. Next, staff, upon reviewing the proposed site plan, staff identified certain concerns specifically related to pedestrian orientation and safety. Part of this site plan requires the pedestrians to access the site from either the northern property line or the eastern property line, go all around the parcel in order to access the building. As you can see, it would also require, or the original design required for pedestrians to cross through the drive-through aisles. The applicant met with staff and we discussed some of our concerns, and they provided this revised option. But staff feels that it hasn't completely identified the concerns. It also does not locate the building at the frontage, at street frontage, which is one of the requirements by the municipal code. It's not, it doesn't locate the parking lot at the rear of the building, which is another concern and recommendation in the municipal code. It also requires pedestrians to cross across a parking lot. As you can see, there's a path of travel in the center of the site plan, but it doesn't grant access from the pedestrians to directly access that building. They still have to go around the side of the building. Next slide, please. Staff communicated this concerns to the applicant and their team. We've met with them a few times and gone over different options. They have been receptive to our concerns, and they have provided a revised option. Next slide, please. Which we feel has addressed some of the concerns that we previously had. They have now provided pedestrian access off of 4th Street and West Side Boulevard. They have located the building at street frontage, and they have granted access off of West Side Boulevard. We suggested or recommended reconsidering relocating the trash enclosure, which is currently located on the southeast corner of this slide, to eliminate it and either put it on the north property line, as you can see labeled option A along the West Side Boulevard, or relocate it to the 4th Street on the left-hand side labeled as option B. We provided these alternatives to both engineering, the fire department, and recology for their consideration. Engineering did express some concerns, and we do have engineering here on the call to address those concerns. Recology said that they would opt for option B, that was a more feasible option than option A. And the fire department indicated that they also didn't have any concerns with option B. The main concern is that there are still concerns when it comes to queuing. We would be eliminating the previously proposed entrance off of 4th Street and just limiting to West Side Boulevard, which have the potential to create queuing and perhaps some issues with recology and their trucks entering the site. So we are asking for your suggestions, your recommendations as to how to proceed with this design and provide options for the applicant. The applicant has also provided a presentation with different options, and they will present that after this one, after I'm completed my presentation. Next slide, please. Like I previously mentioned, we feel that this one addresses a lot of the concerns that we previously had identified when it comes to pedestrian safety and the building orientation. And I've just outlined some of the items that we have previously identified and provided to the applicant that we feel have been addressed, although there's still concerns when it comes to queuing and access to the parcel. Next slide, please. As I previously mentioned, we are here to for you to ask any questions and provide any feedback related to the design. I think once the applicant provides their presentation, you'll be able to see the different options and why they wouldn't work and why we feel that this one has more potential than what they had originally proposed. That completes my presentation.
Okay. So we have the applicant team here, and give me one moment, and we're gonna pull up the what's it called? Their presentation that they have with some alternatives that they've been working through with staff to try and address some of the issues. And because the site's so constrained, we're kind of running into one issue or the other. So that's really why we wanted to have this study session with the Planning Commission to get some feedback before bringing this item for public hearing. Oh, you put it in there. Okay, sorry. Their presentation didn't get on the network, but we are getting it.
Well, while we wait for that, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Mark Engstrom with Engstrom Properties, part of the applicant team. Also with me, I have Claudia Carrillo Chen with Starbucks on the real estate side. I have Tamura Chavez, who's the regional manager for Starbucks, a 30-year resident of Hollister and a 20-year employee of Starbucks. Alan Andrade, our civil engineer. Also on here is our traffic engineer, Jonathan Flecker, who's on the Zoom. And we have 2 or 3 other architect planners.
Barbara and Corey are all on your team, right? Corey as well?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Jonathan, Corey, and Barbara are online.
And our goal tonight, we're 2 years into this process, is to walk away with a general consensus of an acceptable site plan, because we have vetted out all of the other conditions with all the other departments, and so the only one that we're I think stuck with is a site plan that works the best. And so what I would like to do is kind of walk you through the evolution from 2021 when we started on this. And
you gotta set the timer in all fairness to Dr. Siwak. Oh, it's a study session,
Study
so
session.
it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, sir.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
turning me off. Yeah.
So here's the site, and what we learned early on before we could do anything is that between Public Works, Kimberly Horn, who's the city's traffic engineer, and our traffic engineer, there had to be consensus of where the driveways could be, because it's very limited. It's less than a half acre. It's right at a half acre. So we conducted traffic studies, and the takeaway from that is that we identified right-in only off of 4th Street, and then ingress and egress off of West Side. So with that, we could turn it over to our planners, who then would in turn start working on various site plans. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through the evolution of these site plans. Bear in mind, we also had, from the planning side, criteria that, you know, the building had to be on the corner, we had to have the parking in the rear, we had to have pedestrian access. So we tried to incorporate all of those every time we dealt with fixed locations for ingress and egress. So next. So here is our initial submittal, lacking in a few things. So we received feedback from staff. We resubmitted again. Next one. Okay, this one, we modified the trash enclosure, and I can't read that, but we made a couple small modifications at staff's request and Public Works request. And then the next one here, this one is, let's see. Oh, yeah, we had a parking issue.
I'm Callie Huff. I'm part of the applicant team.
Okay.
Also part of the ownership. So the previous one, if you want to go back, Ava, one sec. In this submittal, we asked for a deviation for the parking calcs. In the next slide, we shrunk the building because we weren't able to get the parking calc deviation. So then the building footprint becomes 1,500-ish square feet, and then we make the 21 stall calc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glad you could read that. And then the next slide.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, this one we modified. Yeah, so this one we only had one access on 4th Street, which is entrance only, and modified the exit of the drive-through to steer the cars back on West Side to prevent them from going out on 4th Street. And then, we also added a median to prevent anybody going southbound on 4th Street to turn left into the site. And then this, just a minor modification of restriping West Side. And then this was our latest site plan that we've evolved with.
So what we have, the intent here is that we wanted the building with frontage, we wanted the parking in the rear, we wanted pedestrian access. We think we've achieved that with this. The goal here, and the difference between this and the alternative site plan, really has to do with traffic circulation and queuing, which is first and foremost. And that's why we have Tamara here that has to live with whatever we end up with. And she manages this district region. Starbucks knows queuing, it knows delivery, and it knows where these problems we could run into them. This particular site plan has queuing that'll accommodate 14 cars, which is adequate, more than adequate to fit the code. 14? 13. Okay. There is a chance that it could back up, and if it did back up, it could back up into West Side, and at that point it would accommodate 17 or 18. So that's its maximum capacity. The alternative site plan that we've circulated, and we can go to that one.
Oh, I think 2 more slides.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is the one that staff likes. It has, it satisfies those conditions with the building in the front or on the street. parking in the rear, pedestrian access. So I think both of these satisfy that. Operationally, this one creates some problems in that the queuing opportunity, to the extent, I think this is 2, 4, 6, 8, this is 12, could back up into West Side quite easily. And as soon as it starts to back up into West Side, you would have landlocked all of the parking that's in the primary parking field there. We're not so worried about the parking stalls that are on the north, because those would normally be associate parking. But the parking field, we're concerned is that we could box them in there. And we've eliminated the ingress off of 4th Street, so which provided better circulation. And so this isn't, this is, both of them are okay. One is just far superior in being able to handle traffic flow and customers. Both of them, I think, satisfy the intent of the design requirements for being on the street and pedestrian access. Our concern operationally is the impact that this could have if, in the event that this stuff, the traffic started to queue up. And I'm happy to bring Tamura up if you would like to make any comments operationally, or Claudia, or if you folks have any questions relative to traffic. And our traffic engineer has, reviewed the alternative with the ingress off of 4th Street, and our traffic studies reflect that, and it satisfies all the city's conditions from the public works standpoint. Planning is a little different. And
I would like to make 2 comments, if possible.
yeah.
Almost tripped on my back. Good evening, Honorable Planner Commissioners. My name is Claudia Corolla Chang. I'm with Starbucks. I'm a store development manager that supports the new store growth for our company. And there's just 2 items to add. So today's Starbucks basically operates 60% or more out of the drive-through. So, and the remainder of that, about 30%, is with our mobile order. So people utilize our mobile apps and so forth. And the remainder of that is people actually come inside our stores, they sit, they order, and so forth. So that's, I think, an important thing to mention. And then the other part to also mention and consider is our average drive-through peaks or drive-through lanes should accommodate more than 13 to 15 car stacks during peak. However, there are non-peak periods, and during that non-peak periods, as you may know, the 2 existing stores that we do have, they're both drive-throughs, the peaks could range up to 20 cars. So we want to make sure that within this site, we can accommodate both the normal flow, which is 13 to 15 cars, but also some of those peaks, so we don't go into West Side or 4th Street. And that's why we think that one of the other plans is a bit more superior, because we know our business is more than 60% drive-through, and also during peaks, we could have up to more than 15 to 20 cars. That was the 2 items I wanted to add. And I'm here also if you have any questions for me or Tamara, who runs them every day.
Can we talk?
Yeah, it's study session, so
Okay.
talk.
Chairman, do you mind?
Go for it, please.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the stacking. Could you tell me the lot size of this lot? I just don't seem to see it here real quick.
I think I actually saw it on the first slide here. Or Magda, do you have it? 0.563 acres.
It's a half acre? A little
So
over half acre?
a little over half acre.
What is the lot size at our new Starbucks on San Felipe Road? Does anybody know?
We did that.
Yeah.
It's just a little under an acre.
It's very close to an acre, though.
Yeah, and that's
almost double the size of this lot.
Correct,
It's
and that building is 2,300
Big.
square feet. Yeah.
Okay, bigger.
And this is intended to release the pressure off of San Felipe.
Well, they have the room. This one does not. So my opinion here, and I've listened and I've read, this site is too little for everything you need to put on there. Then I'm concerned about the ordering board being anywhere near the east or north property lines, because you have residences right there, and those boards are loud. And people, then the other concern I have is cars idling next to residential perimeter, because there's a big line at Starbucks, idle forever.
Yeah, we'd have to go back to, well, whichever alternative we're gonna be looking at, as far as where the, so I think that's their,
How would you stage 20 cars anyway? I don't see it. Maybe you'll have to show me how you're gonna do that.
So coming in from west side.
Right.
Those
are each cars, right?
yes.
Correct, yes.
Okay, well, there's only one there, 13 or so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So if you could just
13.
imagine where it would loop around and go out to west side.
Yeah, not good.
Your comment about the speaker, the technology is advanced.
So it's directed.
It's all
It's
at
not this way.
it's all
Okay.
it's all computerized. It's all at ambient.
Still, they got to place an order, and there's a speaker.
There's a speaker, and it's at the ambient noise that is right in that
Okay,
vicinity.
it's an allowable
Correct,
noise
yes.
level, is what
Yeah.
the ambient noise level.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just
Operationally, we feel comfortable that the site will accommodate the volume that we project for this store.
and keep it on site.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It just
And
cannot. If we let that spill out the west side, we're going to be called the dumbest planners ever.
Well, and that's what we have in front of us. That's why we're looking at for guidance. So from a public works standpoint, this provides the most backup stacking. Okay, this is pushing 20 cars. The other one satisfies more to the goal of the planning department, but not the public works department.
Okay.
So
It's supposed to be
so-
pedestrian oriented and mixed use as well, and you don't have any of that going on.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
It's
you know,
not very geared towards pedestrian, and I don't know that this is a good site for that. And it's small. It's small.
it's permitted by right.
Okay.
So, so I think the goal tonight is to look at, and what the applicants are asking for is some design considerations. So they can move forward with something that they feel that the city would support. So,
But what if we just think it's too small? I have no leg to stand on?
so they are, by right, would be permitted to do so it's just site and
Okay.
architectural design review, so
Long
there's
as all
no
their
conditional
improvements
use
fit.
permit.
The parking fits?
So we're looking at how does the proposal meet our current code? And so that's where alternative 2 came
Okay.
in, where they moved the building towards 4th and West Side to provide that direct pedestrian
Right.
access. And now are dealing with the circulation issues and on the rest of it. So that's kind of where we are right now and where that conflict is. And so what the applicant's asking the Planning Commission is, where do you think we should go with this, as far
To
as
another lot.
without doing that, because like I
know.
said, it is permitted by right.
I don't have anything against it. It's just tight.
Commissioner Lamar, if I may, I was able to look up the newer Starbucks, and just for reference, the acreage was 0.74, and then
Okay.
the new restaurant is 2,200 square feet, and that one had a queuing of 10 vehicles.
Really?
No, it's
It queues a
more-
bunch
it's-
in there.
It
it's-
queues more, but on the plans, that's what the staff report says.
Well, that's
and
good. I mean, they have room over there, and this one doesn't.
Correct, and that exceeded what was required of them at that time.
Yeah, so our code as far as queuing only requires, I believe, 6 queuing vehicles. So they're meeting our code for queuing. The real conflict, as been mentioned, has been, is this site meeting that pedestrian orientation requirements in the code? This site, so staff has had some concerns about the orientation of the building being behind the drive-through, so it really is kind of a vehicular orientation. In this design that's proposed, or this is a slight alternative to the most recent proposal, but it has kind of the two pedestrian paths, both the short one from West Side that does cross that drive-through, so there's a safety concern from staff there, and then the one coming from Fourth where you kind of walk up the back and then across, so that one is a little bit safer from having that walkway kind of area as opposed to crossing that drive-through, but is the building meeting that neighborhood mixed-use pedestrian orientation? But then as mentioned, and we have Mark Falgo online as well from Kimberly Horn for the city, in the preferred option, which we've just been working with Starbucks. They've been providing alternative after alternative. Staff and Starbucks are really trying to work to make this site work for both of us here, but we're kind of getting stuck. So Mark has expressed just in the short day or so that he's had to review a potential alternative option, that there might be some concerns with the backing out of the Recology truck onto one of the roadways. So there might still be some public works concerns in addition to queuing concerns in the other alternative. So we kind of are looking for potentially the planning commission's thoughts on if this is site plan is meeting those goals of the zoning ordinance.
In this preferred option, the trash receptacles down there in the corner there, right next to the houses.
Yes. So this site plan is the most current submittal to the planning division, and it has this path coming all the way around the pedestrian path and crossing. But this would be something that Starbucks is preferring, with kind of the middle point of the pedestrian path here from Fourth, but kind of this direct pedestrian path, which is likely where a pedestrian would walk. And then staff was looking at this alternate, although I can switch back to Magda's PowerPoint. We talked with the applicant team yesterday about some possible tweaks to this to see if it could work for both of us. Let me switch really quick. So we talked about, as Magda mentioned, possibly relocating this trash enclosure, so you might be able to get a little bit more bend and moving it either to Fourth or to West Side. We did talk to Recology. We sent this over to them. They had a preference for option B. However, as Mark might be able to allude to, there's some traffic concerns of either front-loading trucks and then backing out, or backing in and then reversing with Recology there. So yeah, staff and the applicant are just kind of stuck and hoping for.
Well, that'll cut off the parking lot if it queues too deep. So he has a valid concern there.
Yeah, we had talked about possibly a striped keep clear, because if you kept kind of a car width here clear, you could keep clearing this. But I mean, that requires kind of drivers to comply, right?
Yeah,
Not everyone's going to comply with the clear. So.
And just to clarify, the easterly property line is all commercial. So the residential is just on the, and it's
Oh, that's correct. It's next to the El Guernsey. It's in the corner there.
Yeah, so
you're correct.
And it's just a portion of the northerly property
So
line.
how's our city engineer thinking about those two driveways that are really close? It's really unfortunate we couldn't incorporate with the El Guernsey there and have a bigger turn in there, but now you got two driveways, and I'm assuming it's to code, so it's probably not an issue, right?
So this driveway on Fourth, it falls under a section of the code that requires engineering approval and requires it be required for site circulation. Otherwise, it is too close to this intersection and the other El Guernsey drive-through. But as has been discussed, the Public Works on both teams has talked through circulation and the improvements required to Fourth in order to allow that drive-through access as currently designed in the most recent submittal.
So there's enough separation between the driveways per the code. The engineering code.
Yeah, Public Works. Well, so this is new. This is just a trash pickup. So if you go to the preferred option.
I gotta switch. I'll scroll back. We'll go off this one for now.
Yeah, that's close on. That was the first thing that we did was determine exactly where that driveway could go.
Okay.
And then from there, then we started to do we worked on the design.
Okay.
And that's right in only, so there's no
Yeah,
exit
so
off
obviously
of
it's
that.
legal or they wouldn't
Yeah.
have passed it on. Thanks.
Correct, yeah.
It's pretty close though. is what I'm saying.
It's quite close, both to the intersection and to the other
Yeah.
driveway.
I had a question about option 2. So I was wondering, so you mentioned that there could be a potential issue of people of cars getting landlocked in the parking lot because of too many cars in the drive-through lane.
Mm.
Is there any reason why the end of the drive-through lane, why you've got it curving on into the parking lot again? Isn't there any reason why you couldn't just have an option for the cars to go forward and have kind of a second driveway so that cars could exit straight after pickup?
Right there.
It's too close to the intersection.
Yeah, it's too close to
Okay.
the corner.
Okay, thank you.
Those two drive locations are the only things that are fixed and
work.
stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that we could tweak and maybe add another 1 or 2 on this. And our goal, tonight is to come away with something, that we could work on. I mean, obviously we've had 20 plus, we're a couple years into this, we're looking for direction. We operationally, we think ours operates the best and will minimize any problems later on down the road. That's just our experience. This satisfies, we think we satisfy the planning requirements. Staff this enhances, I think, what the planning obligations are, about being on the street, little better pedestrian access. So it's, we have public works on one side and we have planning on the other. And
I worked for the city for a long time.
I wanted to
I
mention
understand.
just with drive-throughs. As Eva was saying, our code only requires a queuing of 6. The city does require a queuing analysis in certain cases, and usually we don't see anything above about 12 that would be required. And so there's even in a queuing analysis, because we're only looking at these. There's worst case scenarios where we possibly will have something going on to West Side. It happens in every drive-through. You've probably seen it. And a lot of drive-throughs are very inadequate, and most of the ones that we've seen are. This double stacking, this double drive-through is a relatively new concept that we've seen to be able to accommodate those additional cars, where usually you would only see probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 that would be able to fit on any site. So from a staff perspective, we're not necessarily concerned about the length of the drive-through. It's just the conflicts on the site and making sure that everything that has to happen on the site can happen. Congestion is going to be likely at those peak hours. It is in pretty
everywhere.
much every situation. That's the success of Starbucks itself.
Yeah, it's popular.
So I think and that's why I'm just reiterating, just with the focus on basically what is the most important to the Planning Commission. If we have to modify anything that is within the requirements for this particular district, those findings will need to be made. And right now, this is closest to the findings of what planning can make, but of course, there may be some wiggle room that we're going to have to. So that's what we'd like to hear from you in this case.
And just to clarify, we did do a queuing study, and these satisfy our queuing study. We also do, I don't even know if it's required or not, but we do a study that the queuing study dictates how many cars we need, but we also do a parking management plan that in the event we start to breach and do that, what do our associates do? How do they go out and manage it? And so we have that plan that we use internally that Tamara works.
I read
and
that, yeah.
So, I mean, we have, we have that required or not, that's just the way it operates.
I have some questions. So on 4th Street, it can only be an inn.
Correct.
Okay. Could we, I see that chapter 17.08.050 F4 talks about pedestrian linkages between buildings and uses shall include features such as walkways, corner entrances, paseos, outdoor patios, water features, benches, and tangible public art in mixed-use developments. Because the drive-through, it seems to be quite a concern. Why don't we encourage more community space there by creating some type of outdoor area, covered trees, however, that would kind of encourage that, reduce the amount of people that are actually going through the drive-through, and start to include more pedestrians.
If we could go to the preferred option, we do have an outdoor community area. It's kind of a double-edged sword. The more tables we add out there and the more seating, the more parking you require, and we can't fit any more parking. I mean, we would love to enhance, the outdoor area. I mean, there's that opportunity. We could add 2, 3, 4 more tables out there, but it would require.
Is there any way to give an exception on the parking legally to make things fit better, because it is 60% drive-through, and make a little bit more of outside eating area, like Commissioner Rossi's suggesting? I know we hold everybody to parking requirements, but is there a tool?
Well, so Amber, it looks like she's looking at it. There are some instances where parking reductions can be granted, and I think that you considered one at a previous, right? Yes. And yeah, so there are some ways that we can do that, but let me let the staff kind of do their research over there, and we'll get right back to you.
And I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry. It was, if I
Councilman
don't get it out, it's gone.
To the extent that we can enhance the outdoor, yes, we would cover it and do what we could to make it more inviting so that you could use it 10 or 11 months out of the year. But we run into, at another table, you need another stall.
And what is the statistics of the Starbucks that don't have drive-throughs?
Not a lot of those left.
It's a drive-through thing for coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Got to come up here.
Just success rate of Starbucks that do not have drive-throughs.
Yeah, as Mark had mentioned, I'm Tamara Chavez. Nice to be here with everybody. It's not a popular demand anymore by customers, right? Everybody wants to be in the car, easy access, and not have to get out. I do have 4 locations in my market that are cafe only, and one of them actually is a grab-and-go location, so it's the mobile order app is a big population of it. And this location has no seating, so there's other options like that too. So, but the big demand is the drive-through for customers. It's convenient, and this design is great with the 2 lanes coming in, which will alleviate a lot of the concerns around backing out. And we also have other options that we could do too, where it's a handheld device where our employees can go out in the lane and start doing those orders prior to the customer getting to the box, which speeds us up a lot faster. So we have other designs that really help alleviate and make the time go faster. But cafes, not super popular. I mean, a design like this is great, and we have the other 2 locations in Hollister that have fairly large lobbies as well that will, support our customers in those areas too. Does that answer your question?
We are going to have a lot more residents coming on the West Gateway. So there will be more pedestrian in probably, 5 years. It's going to be building up pretty good. So there will be more people walking than currently.
Yeah,
Because we
and-
got all those empty lots.
Right.
They're going to fill up.
Yeah, that's what I loved about this design too. There was, because we're reducing space for the traffic and the parking, and so we have less space to be operationally set, which means we can't have a huge lobby to offer our customers. Having a really nice outside area that can be used in that area, and customers can use Wi-Fi and everything like you would inside a
Yeah.
lobby. So
They got a real tight one over there in the other shopping center.
Yeah.
Little in there. But it's if they go there.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of our areas are used for meetings and
Correct.
students studying. It's really great to have in our community.
We're looking at parking reductions.
Yeah, so I do have an answer for your parking reduction question. We have a couple different code sections. But the first one that allows reduction off-street parking, so it's a general parking reduction. The director, and in this case, it would be the planning commission, may grant a reduction in off-street parking in compliance with the parking section. So administrative permit with notice and rights of appeal. The applicant should provide evidence to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the director that any requested reduction is necessary for the efficient operation of the subject use and will not result in a parking deficiency, but that is through the submittal of a parking study, which demonstrates need and industry standards. I think that the applicant has gone through a lot of this already internally, and likely would have that to be able to provide. But there is, in general parking reduction, there is a possibility of doing that for the effective use of the site, which probably makes kind of sense in this situation. And then what was the other? And then the other thing to look at would be a variance. And of course, variances are mandated by state law that we have to make certain findings. In state law, that we're dealing with unusual site circumstances.
Yeah. It's not meant to get around current code.
That's correct.
Variance. Yeah, it's
However,
not a tool.
the applicability of variances can be granted by the planning commission, and it's for adjustments from the requirements of the zoning ordinance governing only for the following development standards. And one of those is the number and dimensions of off-street parking areas, loading spaces, landscaping, or lighting, except as otherwise provided. So, and then you still have to make those state mandated findings. It can't be a grant of special privilege.
Right.
That type of thing. You probably dealt with looking at variances before. Yeah. No.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
They don't come along because they're not
no.
a tool for getting out of something.
No, and so
You have to prove that other people in the neighborhood have a reduction of parking for their use as well.
Well,
that's how you could justify a variance.
It would be if somebody else in the exact same position, and if you grant the variance for somebody who has the exact same,
Yeah.
you would have to grant it for them. So it's not a grant of special privilege just for this one.
Okay.
So there are options if the planning commission would like staff to explore a parking reduction to open the site back up. We're happy to do that.
My opinion is I would really like to see them work something out and bring something that I could feel comfortable. I'd like to see maybe a few less parking lots, spaces, because again, and I hear what you're saying, it is more car related than pedestrian, but it's close. It's close right there. So my preference, listen to you, you make sense.
Well, just to
Okay.
clarify, what we're talking about is that we've been forced to limit the outdoor seating.
Yeah.
And because we can't provide parking for more tables, if we use one of these methods to increase the number of tables without adding more we don't want to reduce the parking because we think the parking is adequate. So we would just add more tables without adding new tables.
Yeah, and
That's
it sounds like that first code section gives the flexibility. A lot of municipal codes are extremely rigid when it comes to parking, and that is something that's a little bit different from this code. So, and it's really for wanting to make a site work for everything that you're asking for, because every site is different and every use is different. So it sounds like that's a code section if the planning commission has consensus to direct staff to look at a potential parking reduction for the uses that would be required on the site.
Yeah. And we would support that.
Well, because I worked in planning for 20 years for the city, I always try to abide by staff. Not always, but most of the time, yes, because they are the professionals. I am not. Even though I read a lot, I love commercial development, there can't be enough for me. But of course, we're always concerned with traffic and ingress, and concerned about the queuing. But if they've done the study and they're confident they can maintain it on site, and maybe we can give a few less spots to get more outside eating for a pedestrian-oriented business, I'd like to consider something. That's me.
I also was wondering, have you looked at the population in this area as opposed to these other areas where we have Starbucks? I imagine there are a lot of students that are coming from the schools. Is there more foot traffic in this proposed area versus other areas?
I'll answer that. Not yet.
Yeah.
But there's not too many people walking on San Felipe to get coffee.
That's correct. So not yet. But the vision of this area is to have it much more pedestrian oriented. When you have the first project, it's hard to envision what happens, right? So that's why we have these goals. So we start filling in these storefronts, buildings closer to this back of sidewalks. So hopefully, as we see things fill in, there is more pedestrian. But right now, there's very little.
But there's going to be more.
Right, Eva?
And that's why.
That's the goal.
Now this is the safest alternative, the preferred. Eventually, when it becomes a pedestrian, the other one, but when is that? 20 years? So.
No, not 20
well,
years.
Whatever that time horizon is. But this one can be enhanced by enlarging that patio, and pushing that out to the east there and creating more community space. And, I defer to the designers, but is that, some kind of trellis, canopy, you can have the morning sun, so it's a good side.
Okay, you're probably going to hate this, but is this possible to make this a place that doesn't have a drive-through?
No.
Okay.
It's not in their marketing, I'm sure. Everybody's in a hurry. They're not walking. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So if we were to look at alternate number 2 and option B for the the garbage, which yes, we see right there. So could that become an outdoor seating area? I know that the parking is, if you have more outdoor seating, you need more parking.
But we can explore
ideas of that.
Ideas with the parking.
Yeah, if there's potentially direction from the planning commission for us to work with the applicant to explore reducing parking spaces, there might be a little bit more option to shift, and we might be able to get something might be completely different than any of these alternatives. We haven't really looked at them, but there are a few other alternatives that they've also provided. They've done a lot of work. We really appreciate them working with us. They've done a lot of work to look at a lot of different ways to possibly do this. But we could look at if there's something else where we can kind of keep the building orientation still, but also kind of get rid of some of these traffic conflict issues that we're seeing in this alternative. If there might be a few more spaces we could lose in favor of room. And this is my professional but personal opinion. I haven't run this through anyone, but I think if we're looking at an alternative for parking reduction where the goal is pedestrian orientation. I think that could be part of the findings that you're making, is you're trying to encourage pedestrians to utilize this site. So in granting this reduction, you've made a different design of the site to kind of try and get that pedestrian. So I think if that's something we can look at, and then we can also look at if the Planning Commission thinks that with some additional enhancements in the landscaping and in the open space areas that would attract a walker or someone who would want to sit outside and kind of use this site in that way for their studies, that they're feeling that the Planning Commission's feeling that we might be able to make some of those pedestrian orientation findings within the constraints of this proposal. We can look at that with the applicant as well. It's really that the Planning Commission does have to make a finding ultimately that it complies with the zoning ordinance, and the zoning ordinance and has those pedestrian orientation requirements for this neighborhood mixed use. And we're struggling between making sure the site's safe to circulate traffic, making sure the site meets the requirements of the applicant's business model, and meeting those requirements of the neighborhood mixed use zone. So with a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of direction on a couple of things we can look into, I think we can at least move forward. And if we have to have another study session, we can, but hopefully we can come to a site where we think we can make that finding, because the Planning Commission's given us some feedback in those areas.
Glad to help.
Which of your plans has the most parking?
They all have the same.
They're the same.
They are
They're all
the
the
same.
same, yeah.
And parking is based on building square footage.
Right.
So you'd have to.
Come on up, Alan.
What's your last name, Alan?
Andrade.
Oh, you're the draft. I'm sorry. I knew you were familiar, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I know he. Okay.
So I'm going to ask staff to clarify the parking requirement is based on building square footage solely. So if we added tables or outdoor seating, we wouldn't necessarily need to add parking spaces per code.
I'm gonna get Amber to bring me her computer. I'll read the section. It's square
that's just
footage, but I know it
Based
also
on
potentially
use.
mentions tables, but I'm gonna check which restaurant line it is. Give me a
And
moment.
while you're looking that up, for the commissioners, I'd like you to acknowledge the proportion of drive-through use that they expect versus the number of people that would actually park and go use the site.
Right.
That what the applicant and the design team are trying to do is to make sure that we facilitate the primary use or the most impacted use and provide as much queuing for the drive-through as possible in a way that doesn't obstruct the other uses. This is why the preferred alternate has kind of been really pushed by the Starbucks team, is because operationally it provides the most flexibility for all users. The term pedestrian orientation is a component of this district, which is why planning staff has been so adamant to like get us to orient the building in a manner that's, right against the sidewalks.
Mhm.
We understand that. We just think it contradicts the overall goal of getting the site to operate in the most efficient manner with the way that we see these sites operating. So
That's your business model. And
Right.
We have our business model.
So your business model is defined by code to a certain extent. And what's lacking in there is acknowledging that those cars that are in the drive-through lane are in essence parked customers. So if you could, make a determination that, they provided the parking spaces required by the code specifically for the building square footage, and they've also accommodated additional users in vehicles, not necessarily parked, but moving through the drive-through lane to make this facility operational.
I don't know about that. They're
Yeah,
idling. They're
it's
not
a-
parked.
That's the point. The point is what's happening on this site. If it was solely a drive-through location, I believe code, would only require the six cars queued. And we're at 13. So, per code, you're not varying. And when you start looking at wanting to have more open space or adding tables, is adding tables outside in code, if you guys have made a conclusion, does that increase the parking demand requirement?
So parking, and this falls under fast food counter service because the only other options are takeout only, which this obviously you can sit, and then table service, which this is not table service restaurant. So 5 spaces plus 1 space for every 3 seats in the dining area, or 1 space for each 100 square feet of gross floor area, whichever is greater.
Right.
That's
so,
what we're looking at.
So that kind of kills the ability to add the amenity of extra outdoor park or seating, because the site isn't big enough to accommodate the parking stalls that would require.
But we're saying we may consider a reduction.
A reduction is a variance.
No,
I'd
no,
actually-
no. There's
no.
there is a code section that we could use. It was the first one that I read. That is not a variance. Correct.
And it would be specifically related to your interpretation of how outdoor seating doesn't have a demand?
What it was is it actually talks about allowance of a parking reduction if the finding is made that it improves, I don't have exactly the wording.
Well, so it would go into, we understand that there is a lot of cars that are going to be in the drive-through.
Right,
and
so
not
what
necessarily need a
what we're
park.
talking about is that there is a code section that would allow some flexibility if it improves the, basically the uses on the site. So that's what we're,
So that would allow additional outdoor seating, parking
yeah,
reduction.
it's one of the more flexible parts of our code, and it's nice to have that in there, so it isn't as rigid.
I did want to point out that your initial submittal, the size of the building was 2,100 square feet, and there were 20 parking spaces. And in alternate number 2, I don't see the size, but you did mention that the building itself would be smaller, and there are actually 22 parking spaces.
Correct. We
1,540 square feet.
we had to shrink the building
Yes.
because we were limited in the number of stalls.
Yeah, so one of the comments on the initial submittal, Commissioner Ross from staff, was that it didn't meet the parking requirements. So they did a combination of increasing the parking and reducing the building size to get into that parking requirement range. And then we've stuck at the same or at least a similar size since this submittal.
It's not applicable in this case, but there are a number of municipalities that allow us to count the cars in the queue for parking. That's not uncommon.
Okay.
Our code is not caught
Your
up to that yet.
code doesn't. Your code doesn't.
That's
do
far
that.
too modern.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just to read again that reduction of off-street parking requirements section that we were talking about that isn't the variance section. The applicant shall provide evidence to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the director, or again, planning commission in this case, because that's the approval level, that any requested reduction is necessary for the efficient operation of the subject use and will not result in a parking deficiency through the submittal of a parking study which demonstrates need and industry standards. So I think that, again, there might be an opportunity where Starbucks might they obviously have many locations, right? So they might have information about how many people park, how many people walk to a site that might have similar walkability access, or the planned build out of the West Gateway and neighborhood mixed use kind of goals of the immediate vicinity and the applications we have in place, or where, they can show that their customers in their drive-through account for cars that might have otherwise parked, so there is a reduction. So there might be that kind of analysis that can be shown that we might be able to make the finding in this code that's required.
We're also more than happy to go back to the 2,200 square foot building, which would accommodate a bigger lobby area as well.
I was going to ask about actually reducing the size of the building to have a larger outdoor area.
Pretty small.
It's pretty small, and I don't think functionally
But how would you meet the parking if you made the building bigger? That was your first issue.
But if we can file for this variance.
But that's not the intent for the reduction, for you to put a bigger store. We're trying to fit it in there with your smaller store. It's
sure, but with the larger footprint, we could have a lobby with more indoor seating as well.
She wants to have the outdoor seating for the pedestrian-oriented feeling. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the question is, are they inside or outside?
Yeah.
You know, because the rest of the operation isn't gonna change square footage
Yeah.
wise, so.
Well, she brought it up because
Yeah.
she wanted to see outdoor seating.
Yeah, I definitely think
Yeah.
that,
More.
especially in the direction that we're going in that area, it's very inviting when you have a nice outdoor space to just congregate, hang out, meet,
And that's going
work
to
on
be
your
your first
assignments.
Starbucks here that actually will have some pedestrian orientation, because you don't have it out there. It's in a shopping center, and out there nobody's walking. But over here you're going to get some. That'll be good.
Well, and the applicants obviously heard what the comments that have been
Okay.
said and kind of digest some of it and go back. And so I think it would be really falling on the applicant and working with staff on this code section for, hey, what do we want to do on the site? What does it really want to be that meets our code, meets the operational standards? And where does the city need to have some wiggle room potentially with parking?
I really appreciate the applicant working with you guys. I really do. I can see that they have.
Just to address the comment regarding the additional, our goal is really to provide a third place. That's how we started. That's really our business. The drive-through is a convenience that continues to drive our consumers every day. To address Commissioner Ross's question, in order to activate a bigger patio, we really would have to look at downgrading our square footage. Either we go with a full 2,200 square feet, which does provide outdoor seating and additional to our lobby. That's San Felipe and Santa Ana, for example. That would be the same footprint. Or we would have to eliminate it and go more towards a drive-through only, with maybe a walk-up window, which would activate pedestrian ability to walk up to the window, place the order, pick up, in addition to the patio. But the actual building would be more like a drive-through only, which would have no lobby. You'd not be able to walk into our store to place the order. You would only activate with a window. In addition to that, the patio. Those buildings range between 1,100 square feet to 1,300 square feet.
But that wouldn't be consistent with our mixed use, to just have a drive-through? Or how about, what do you guys think about that?
A lot of that has to, site planning really is a lot of it. You can have pedestrian-oriented, walk up only. It has to do with design and site planning. So I think we've heard a lot tonight. I don't know if there's any other further direction that the Planning Commission has.
I did want to address, there were option A, option B for the trash.
Trash enclosure.
And so I think it would be good for us to weigh in on that as well.
If they would go with something more like alternative 2, right? Instead of their preferred option, which we've been talking about.
Yeah, so having the trash there does seem to be a bit of a problem for waste management to come in and dump it and then have to back out. So having it at, I would say, the west side boulevard, although Recology preferred it on the 4th Street.
On 4th, correct.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Recology preferred it on 4th, but again, we could look at both with the direction of the Planning Commission. We can look at, because I'm hearing possibly look at a parking reduction and see if there's something there that we can work with, and possibly extending the outdoor to just create an inviting outdoor feel to the site that would draw pedestrians to kind of accommodate the restrictions of the site. And I think we can look at both of those on both of these alternates and see if there's an option, right? Because if there was some parking reduction here, you might get a little bit of some leeway in this kind of corner where you might get a little bit more queue, or you might be able to get that trash enclosure out of the way, right? So I think there's a little bit of option, or you might even be able to move this parking if you can shift the connection, right? There might be some leeway if there's a few less parking spaces required on the site. So I think we can look at both the preferred option as proposed, with the kind of more drive-through queue, but with the building not up against the street, and we can look at this alternate, and we can look into both those strategies and see if there's something in either of these site plans that can work.
It looked like the preferred option had some issues with pedestrians crossing across that drive-through line.
Yes, so that's been staff's kind of concern about that pedestrian orientation with the drive-through in this design, that you're not getting that pedestrian orientation or kind of a safe access. Now, the applicant did talk, this is like a slow merger point in the drive-through, and it obviously is a drive-through, so they're not speeding through here. So hopefully people are paying attention, but that's been a concern as well about kind of making that pedestrian orientation, finding when pedestrians are crossing this drive-through to get to a building.
I just would say that the drive-through is a lot safer than the parking lot.
The McDonald's in Gilroy has the going across the
Yeah.
drive, and
It's not common, but it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not ideal,
And I'm going to scroll back actually even before. I don't know if it's this initial submittal, but I'm not seeing, here or some of the older submittals. We had, so we've had kind of some paths here where we were crossing the drive-through entrance. So, that can kind of be moved, or we can look at this. We have the most recent submittal where the pedestrians coming from west kind of took a long way around, but a safe way around. And then we've had an alternate from 4th coming here, but again, we're crossing the drive-through. So it's kind of the long path that you don't think a pedestrian's naturally going to take. They're probably going to take, this path or kind of this angle, right? But so there's been some alternatives of where the pedestrian path and where the pedestrian enters from both West Side and 4th proposed by the applicant. So if there's discussion from the Planning Commission on kind of where that might be best as well, we can merge plans and thoughts. That's something we didn't directly talk about, but this has been the preferred, where you're kind of having the most direct, obvious path of the pedestrian, because if you tell a pedestrian go walk all the way around here, they're not going to do that, right? So that was kind of the concern of staff, is like, yes, we're providing a sidewalk, that's great, but are they going to use your sidewalk? And then we have the kind of second option of the pedestrian on 4th, because it is a little bit more direct here. So we've looked at a really direct path. We have the really direct path. We have kind of a mid-direct path, but again, crossing the drive-through lane here. And we have the kind of most indirect path as options that we've looked at too with the applicant.
Yeah, we would expect that the 4th Street pedestrian access would be the more popular of the two.
I have a question. I never asked this in the meetings that we've had. And I'll have to go to the other sites. Are there any local examples of where the pedestrian access goes from the public right-of-way through across the drive-through? On San Felipe?
In Sunset Airline from the bank, from Papa Murphy's, let's say, walking over to the bank, you walk through drive-through.
Okay, it might be something that would be well for, and staff will definitely do that, but even if the Planning Commission wanted to go kind of take a look at that as well, what does it feel like? I'll definitely do that and encourage my staff to do it as we work through these issues.
I actually checked that Starbucks crossing as well as across the street. McDonald's has in that parking lot with Ace Hardware, same thing, pedestrian access off their sidewalk where there's a stop sign for the drive-through traffic, wide yellow bump dots that designates that they have the right of way to go through. So it's not uncommon to have them cut through. But what I was going to ask you was on the preferred option, if you go back to that one, if we made parking allowances and were to eliminate the 4 spots on the West Boulevard entrance,
Are you saying the preferred, the
preferred
Starbucks
option.
preferred option or the alternative to?
It's-
Which
I
one?
just
This
labeled
one?
as
Preferred
preferred
option.
Okay.
If those 4 spots were eliminated, would that possibly generate up to, I think, I'm looking at another 6 extra vehicles that could possibly queue? And then the win-win situation for more outdoor seating, there's already 2 different pathways. We could then create that into more covered outdoor seating and make it even more.
Well, most likely those 5 stalls, I think.
4.
Your top 4 stalls would be associate parking.
Okay. Well, then the next question would be, now
employees,
when I went through Gilroy today and looked with their restaurant there with In-N-Out, they will do a temporary closing with cones, barricades during high peak hours to allow for the queuing. If that is going to be deemed employee parking.
They've pretty much put it's all on site now. They're not queuing off anymore. They're actually used part of their parking lot to maintain that. That gets really dicey right there too, right?
They do go through the queue line
Yeah.
and have that system down to where they got you drive through really quick.
Well, I think that's what Tamara was talking about is that there's a whole sequence of actions that fall into place when they start queuing up.
Outside orders.
Call 911 and get them out there.
Go
and
fast.
Get the cones out. And
Faster, please.
yeah.
No, because I definitely like the idea of more outdoor usage, and if those 4 spots were made an exemption of not having them, that could allow more seating and I think potentially more car queuing. Don't know if that's an option. you'd consider.
And I see that, I think it sounds like we're getting some consensus that, hey, staff, why don't we look at kind of being a little bit more flexible with the parking to make the site work better? That's sort of what we're hearing.
Yeah, and that a larger outdoor space would get that pedestrian orientation from an exterior perspective that we're kind of looking for here. Kind of meet there.
I look forward to seeing another plan. I'm sorry.
Well,
think
thank
you'll
you.
get
Thank
there.
you for giving us some guidance.
Okay.
The staff's been great to work with. You know, we're all just trying to get this right, and, you know, we want to be a good member of the community, and, you know, operationally, we want it to work, and, you know, staff has codes and compliance issues that we're dealing with, so we do want to get it right, and I think we have enough direction here to, you know, make some changes and get it in front of even Christie and see if we can be back in front of you shortly.
Well, I appreciate all of your efforts and staff.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
it has been refreshing to work with you all and to be able to, it's unusual for an applicant to ask for a study session, and I think this was successful, so.
Healthy, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hope to see you shortly.
Yes.
They go into a lot of communities, so they know how it works.
Okay, we'll move on to planning department reports.
I'd like to just address the planning commission minutes and the public comment from before. I did have a conversation with Mr. Smalt before the meeting on this matter, and what staff is doing is we'll be going back and looking at the tape, and likely in this case, we usually don't want to do verbatim comments, but in this case, because of at the request of and the concerns, especially the potential implications of even how something is said, to do a verbatim of what Mr. Small said. So we talked about that, and I believe he felt that it was acceptable. Yes. So just want to let you know we will be doing that. But because the Planning Commission has already adopted the minutes with the modification, you will not see those again. It'll just be up for signature.
We're correcting the minutes or not?
You would not need to correct the minutes.
But is somebody correcting them?
We are, the
Staff?
staff
Yes.
is,
Okay.
staff is correcting the minutes, and then a copy will be sent over to the high school.
But if you're correcting the minutes, doesn't the planning commission have to approve them?
So, Commissioner Lenore, if I may, at the last meeting, the commission adopted the minutes with a change to add the language regarding the environment and what Mr. Small spoke about, to add more language about what he had addressed during his. So that was how the commission adopted the minutes. So we could bring them back, but what staff will do to accommodate what the change that was made is to just put in a verbatim of what was said by Mr. Small into the minutes that was already adopted. So unless you desire to see them again, we don't have to bring them back. You've already adopted them with the change.
Yeah, it sounds to me like what the change will comply with what was adopted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intention was to capture what he said. So
Clarify.
let's just capture it correctly. Is I think the.
And the last thing is, I hope some of you watched the city council meeting. It was nice and long, 6 hours and 7 minutes, on the general plan update, and I believe all of the recommendations of the planning commission, in some form were approved by the city council. So excellent work. I'm really proud of this commission and really how much time you took to go through. The council has directed staff to significantly increase the sphere of influence, as you all recommended, as well as some additional increases to the sphere. So just wanted to let you all know, if you have a chance to watch it. I thought it was a good, healthy discussion.
If I may, Chairperson Henderson, I just thought of something to add just for the commissioners to be aware. Staff is working on the 6th cycle housing element update, as you may be aware, and we are working with Kinley Horn on that. And one of the next steps is to schedule a joint study session with the Planning Commission and City Council. We were looking at potentially the 25th, but I don't think it's going to work for consultants and staff, so we haven't reached out. But we're hoping to get something on the agenda between the commissioners and the council in like last week of September, first week of October is the goal. So be on the lookout. We'll reach out to you when we have a date or two that works for staff and consultant. But we got to coordinate between your commission as well as the council to try and get that on the books to keep that moving forward. But just be aware that we'll be reaching out.
And with the joint study sessions, we only need to have a quorum of one of either the council or the planning commission in order to hold it. So if there's not a quorum of both, just FYI, I believe that if it was, say, the commission did not have a quorum, they speak as members of the public.
Right, so you'd be limited to your 3-minute public comment, so it is preferred to have a quorum of both bodies.
So we'll do our best to get a quorum of both bodies.
And this is on what subject?
The housing element.
Okay.
As you know, as we've talked about, the housing element is required to be, in order for the city to be in compliance with state law, it has to be adopted by December 31st of this year. We are in an extremely tight, barely, if possible, turnaround time. Our contract with Kinley Horn has us set for, if we stay on track, being able to get our draft up to the state really as soon as possible, and it really is going to be up to the state how long they take to turn it around. So we're really trying to keep the momentum up. So we're asking a lot of you, a lot of meetings in this next month and 2 months. But
there's been a lot of meetings.
Yeah, it's a busy couple of months.
May I please request a hard copy of the draft housing element?
Of course.
Yeah.
I'll just say it is not yet available, but we will give you a hard copy. I cannot stare at a screen
very long. I have to have the hard copy.
Yeah, the draft is set to come out first week in October.
Okay. When you get it, call me. I'll come and get it.
It's not that big.
Well, I've read the housing element before.
Okay. Any further planning department reports? Okay. Planning commission reports. Commissioner Lenore.
I have a question, Chairman. Have you ever gone to the city council and spoke on behalf of the planning commission?
No, I haven't attended. There was one time where there was, it was the lot behind 7-Eleven, and there was,
Right.
there was, yeah, somebody.
You spoke on behalf of the planning commission.
I did, and
I
I
don't
shouldn't
have a
have
problem with
actually.
it. No.
I
I'm
probably
getting to
shouldn't have done
something.
that at the time
No.
because.
And as David, you boys
Yeah.
gone before the council before and spoke.
Yeah.
Well, I was invited by Development Services and planning staff to go speak, even though I didn't want to. So I said, okay, and I had to
Same
listen
here.
to our whole meeting again and read a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff just so I would be up to, I got to refresh my memory. Well, dude, Councilman Resendez objected to me speaking because I didn't have a majority of vote of the planning commission to send me there. So, and I sat on this commission for 6 years, and we never took a vote on if somebody's gonna go speak to the council. So clearly, I was singled out to not afford the speaking that I wanted to clarify a couple things. Luckily, Gary Coates did clarify the thoughts we had on the North Gateway. But there was a couple of other things that I did want to say, but I was not afforded the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Planning Commission. So in the future, we'll make sure that we give a vote so that never happens again, because I was offended like you don't know.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time prepping, and I'm Commissioner Lenore, not Carol Lenore. He was calling me out, and then I burst. I didn't represent this commission to the best of my ability, so I want to apologize as I did that evening. I yelled out. It was wrong, and I won't let that happen again. But just so you know, we'll need that vote so that if we ever want to go speak, hey, if that's how it's going to be. But I've never seen that before.
I'll
So
just
I spoke
clarify.
like to Carol Lenore.
So you're right that if any one of you is going to speak on behalf of the commission, in a public forum, be it city council or really anywhere else, then you'll want to have the consensus or approval of a majority of your commission.
In a public hearing, because they gave me consensus, the chairman and
Yeah,
the vice
well, you
chairman.
really should be making all of your decisions in
Yeah.
public. And
Okay, so we learned something new, but it's never been called out before, ever.
Well, and I would, my recollection is it was the city attorney that stopped you from speaking
No, it was
on behalf.
Roland brought it up. He doesn't never want me to say anything.
It was, well, I think I watched it. It was the city attorney first, and then Roland piled on.
Yeah, and I have to apologize. I was given poor direction.
Well, all I got to say is I've been at this a long time,
Yeah.
and I thought it was very...
Yeah, the
But
direction.
It's all right. I live and learn.
Yeah, the direction I had been given from the city clerk is likely possibly how it worked in a different community where
Yeah,
she was.
that's fine. I live and
because we
learn.
were sort of in a rush before that, so I apologize for.
Yeah, it's all right. I knew where the pettiness came from. Thank you.
Okay. Any other reports? I'll just say I did watch the city council meeting, and I was very pleased to see that most of the actions we took were
It was awesome.
were
proud
supported
of
by the
them.
council. So I feel like we did the right thing. So
It's monumental what we did. The sphere. We should have a lot to be proud of as far as planning. I hope you feel that way, because I know you're new, but you'll see that it'll be really good for us. Planning is long range.
right. Okay. Any
I'm
other
about
reports?
done, you guys. So pretty
Okay.
soon you'll be done with me. I'll be done.
Okay, so that concludes the business of this meeting. So we will adjourn the meeting at 8:30.